So good afternoon and welcome to my talk. It's such a pleasure to be back in person at a conference. So today I'm going to talk a bit about game development with Unity, but from an Android point of view, and so how Android developer can contribute to some amazing game made with Unity. So first, a bit about myself. I'm Julien Salvi. I'm a lead Android engineer at Gradle, a French unicorn based in Paris. I'm also an Android JD, and I'm part of the Paris Android user group, like listening punk music and drinking IPA beers. And you can find me on Twitter, so at Julien Salvi. So what we're gonna talk about gaming. So I will do like an overview of game development on Android with multiple game engine, and then I will focus on Unity. Then I will show how to build Unity plugins, how you can build Android libraries for Unity. And then I will show you how you can bring Unity content to Android Studio and manipulate the code that has been generated by Unity. And then I'll end up showing what Unity as a library is, like bringing some Unity content to your application as a library. So first, let's talk a bit about game development on Android. So there are multiple game engines that can be used for developing Android apps with some 3D content, 2D content. But the two major ones now are Unity and Unreal Engine. They are like the major game engine in the ecosystem to build like advanced 3D applications and very realistic application, especially for Unreal. Or you can go like for Cocos 2D, like to build some tiny 2D games. It's a free framework like written in C++, so you can go deep in the code. And if you like some open source game engine, you can go for the Godot game engine, kind of similar to Unity, but with the open source mindset. But I first dig into Unity. So why focusing on that? Because now more than 50% of the new mobile games are made with Unity. So that's a big metrics, especially if you think that many studios now are trusting this game engine. Like if you recognize this game, Hearthstone. So it's trusted by many major companies like Blizzard, or some small ones that make some nice VR applications like White Elk, also some other major game studio like Square Enix, and as I said, like White Elk, and that was the first Niantic that brings the Pokemon Go that is now well known on the mobile ecosystem. Okay, so now let's dig a bit about the game development with Unity. So Unity is available on Windows, Mac, or Linux. You can make 2D games, 3D games, AR application, VR application, or mix of both with MR applications. It's good for fast prototyping and fast scripting, so you can iterate very easily and have a prototype very fast. And it supports most of the 3D and 2D formats for like building your games. And it has a great asset store. So even if you don't want to build your own assets, you can find many assets with the asset store. Then for an Android point of view, so it's quite great because it has a great support of OpenGL and Vulkan. There is a native bridge to Android. And you can also export your Unity games that you have built to Android Studio and do some stuff with the generated code. You have the support of Java and Kotlin, so you can write native plugins. So now let's see how we can build these plugins as an Android developer. Okay, so actually, Unity developers are building applications with C#. So they are like doing C# scripts that are attached to some game object inside the game. And the Unity developers are in charge of all the gaming part, all the 3D rendering. So Unity have the control of the rendering pipeline. And the nice thing is like they have some cross-shader complication, so it's nice like to have just one place to build your game for Android, iOS, Windows, or some console. And they have to think that they need to bring the best experience to the user, so they need to keep a high frame rate. And that's very important, like in the gaming ecosystem, like to keep the bar very high in terms of performance. So what Unity does look like, it looks like this. This is the Unity Studio, but then this is for our fellow Unity developers. What's interesting for us is how we can help Unity developer building great applications. So to build an Android plugin for Unity, you can use many things. You can go like for a Java plugin or using Kotlin, or you can go deeper using C++ with the JNI. And then these plugins might be compiled into a jar, into a ARR or a .so for the C++ plugin, and that will be supported by Unity. Or you can directly add some Java and Kotlin classes directly to your Unity project and don't need like to go to the jar compilation and then add it to your project. It's also supported to write direct classes and direct source code in your Unity project. So let's take as an example here, if you want like to build like a player plugin to render some videos on your application. So we'll focus here on the Android part that needs like, we need to do some OpenGL stuff to support the rendering on the surface view, for example. And then we need to expose a nice API that will enable us like to communicate with Unity and our plugin. So let's see some stuff about like Android and Unity. They are getting well with each other. So if we take a look at how Unity communicates with our native platform, so how Unity deals with Android, so it all goes through the JNI. So even if you have some Java or Kotlin code, it will interact natively through the JNI and have pass through some C++ code. So Unity can like run all the things at low level without like destroying all the performances. So let's have a look at our Android plugin here. Just like basic some function, open function. So maybe we have like a pure player bridge which take an Android context in the constructor. Then we have like 3 different methods, like adding subtitles, do some stuff on the main thread with a parameter, or getting a count, like get the track count. So when we expose this plugin, so this class, then maybe implementing on some stuff, do some stuff. So this plugin is directly integrated into Unity or built as an AR. So we're giving that to the Unity developers, and on their side, they need like to communicate with that plugin in order to get the native information from our plugin. So first, we need like to initialize the new plugin. So we need like to use an Android Java class that will bind the package of the plugin name. So here our Unity bridge or Unity player. And then once it's defined, we can get the current activity using the Java Unity player to get the current activity So that's handled by the code generated by Unity. And then we initialize our local media player. So now we have our player bridge. We can do some stuff with it. So this is with C#. You can call some method of the plugin by calling the method call with the method name as a string, and then all the parameters that needs to be for this function. Or if you want like to call a method with something in return, for example, the count here that returns an int, you need like to to specify the type of the return function. If you want like to call a function that must be running on the main thread, like you can call like run on US thread, that is the a function that is part of the activity API. And you can call the Android Java runnable, like, and will run the runnable in the main thread, so you can call the function safely. So putting this all together, it's a bit long for Unity developers like to maintain and write all the code like to call direct Java or Kotlin plugin. So it might take some time to maintain and write. And this is for Java objects. And now let's take a look a bit how the implementation of callbacks are working with the interoperability with Unity and Android and our Android plugin. So let's take, for example, a basic listener, like on success, on failure, with some random object as a result. So on the Unity part, so this is again C#. You need like to define a lot of code, like to define all the implementation of your callback. And again, it's not so easy and readable and so nice to maintain. So sometimes we need like to keep it that way if we are using some external library that relies on some pure Java or Android stuff. Or we can go native and use some C and C++ plugin. And then it will be much more easier for our fellow Unity developers like to interact with our plugin. So inside our plugin, let's define a function like foo plugin function that returns a float. And to call that function on the Unity side, you just need like to import the new like plugin stuff.so and use the DLL import. So this will tell that, okay, I will look at a function that is located in the plugin.so file, and I will define the function I want like to call with a previous static extern. So I want to return a float, and I will define the function here, and that's it on the Unity side. So they can use this function whenever they want and wherever they want. So when you are building C and C++ plugin, do not forget like to load the JNI environment before actually implementing your function. Without that, Unity won't be able to communicate with your plugin and won't be able like to get the data, and it even won't compile. So now we have loaded the JNI environment. We can define the function. So here, using the JNI export, you want like to return a string. So it's going to be a JString. And then to construct the name of the function, like you need to define first telling that it's Java, and then the package name of your plugin separated by underscores, and then the name of the actual string, the actual function, I mean. So it takes in parameters every time the JNI environment and maybe some object or whatever you want like to pass as the parameter. And then just return a string here. It's quite simple. It's a very just a sample of how you can interact with a JNI function. But it can be more complex, and your JNI code might be calling some Java class from the Android framework, for example, if you want to pass a surface view to Unity, you need like to send the pointer of that surface view to enable the rendering of for example, the video. If you want like to render a video in your Unity game, so you can call like some Java class using all the method like find class, and then when you have the class, you can call the method on that function that uses the Java signature of that method in order to call that method, and then you can do some stuff with all the objects you have defined. And if you want like to have a Kotlin or a Java plugin that will communicate with that C++ plugin, in order to load that library in the Java code or in the Kotlin code, you can do it by calling these methods here. So in Kotlin, in the init function, you call the system.load library with the plugin name without the .so. And on Kotlin, you use the keyword external. Oh, thank you. And on the Java part, you use the native keyword to call some native C++ method. All right. So I was talking about like directly adding some Java class or Kotlin classes directly to Unity, and that's something that is supported since the version 2018.2. So there is a dedicated folder for that, where you can put Java classes and Kotlin classes. So you can also access the Gradle file in order to compile this code. So you can import there all the libraries that are needed to compile actually this plugin, and this class you are adding it to the Unity side. And again, if you want to use this plugin, you will use like the Android Java object in the C# code to communicate with that plugin. So I was talking about accessing Gradle. So you can override all the things that are defined by Unity. So the Gradle file is very accessible, and adding some libraries is very possible. So you can have like a great support of all the native libraries for Android. Okay, so now we add like another view of how to build plugin for Unity. Let's have a look how we can bring this game to Android Studio and compile the game from there. Okay, so this is Android Studio with a generated project, and that's what we want. So we can end up here from Unity. So on the Unity side, when you want to export, you can export actually a project, and it's going to be a Gradle project as they call, so supported by Android Studio. And you can also enable the like the Gradle style or the EL to CPP in order like to have the support of the x86 format and the ARMv8. And then if you have some native file, I mean like some Kotlin classes or Java classes in your project, do not like forget to check the symlink sources unless all these source files won't be there when you're gonna export the project. So once we check the source, we export the project, and then we end up to something like that on Android Studio, so we can access all the generated code. So Unity gonna generate a Unity activity that can be accessible, and so you will have a full control of the build workflow, which was kind of hidden when you want like to deal with Unity, and you can there easily add and modify code from the application. As it's on an Android Studio, you will have like a better library management and modify all the code that you want. So for example, this is the code generated by Unity. So this is the Unity player activity and it holds a Unity player, which has actually a frame layout with a lot of stuff inside that communicates with the Unity games. There are a bunch of definition here. You set the Unity player, and then so the game can run. So we can extend this activity. For example, if you have a phone that supports Vulkan, you can override, for example, the update Unity command arguments to force your application to use Vulkan, or if it's not supported, it will go for OpenGL ES2, and then it will play the default of the player settings. So this is a sample how we Android developer can like do some override stuff with the Unity activity that was generated by Unity. So now we exported a full project, so it's gonna run by itself. But let's see how to bring some Unity content, but inside an application that is not like game dedicated. So maybe it's just a part of your application, and you don't want like to have your game just right away when you launch the application. So let's see how the Unity as a library feature works. So that's a feature that is available since Unity 2019.3. So you can add Unity content, which means AR, VR application, 2D, 3D games directly to your applications with a proper library integration. If you export without like the Unity as a library feature, it's not a very like proper library, and it can be very hacky to like interact like a real library. So how we manage that? So same as before, you go on your project, export, you check the export project checkbox. Same as before, if you have some sources, do not forget to check the box. And then before, like Unity as a library, it was like this on the left side, like an application that will run the Unity game. But now with the new structure, so it's more like you have, for example, the launcher, like that will be like your main app module, and then you will have a library, so a new module called here Unity library, which will hold the Unity games, and then you will be able like to call, for example, the override Unity activity wherever you want in your application. So you are writing your application and stuff, and at some point you start the Unity game. So the game shows up. For example, if you want to communicate from some UI part of your application and send some information to the Unity game, you can use the method Unity send message, which will take at first the name of the game object you want to target. For example, here, let's say an Android stuff, like an Android statue that is on your game. Then you will call the change color, that's the method name, and then a parameter. For example, I want to change the color of the object to a green color. So this is how you can communicate directly with the Unity game engine by just sending like some command with Unity send message. So there is some limitations as well for Unity as a library. So you cannot have like multiple instances of your game at the same time, or even multiple instances of a Unity game at the same time on Android. And it's a full screen rendering, so you cannot render your game into a tiny frame, for example. And sometimes you may need like to adapt some method or your plugins to work properly with Unity as a library. And if you do that, also, if you import your games into your application, think that it will add a huge amount of data. So it might increase a lot the size of your APK. So maybe it should be good like to have a look at some like dynamic delivery for your Unity library. Okay, so now let's see some live demo a bit how we can like bring a game to an Android app. So I just built this AAA game. So let's see how we can like bring it to Android Studio, and then how we can deploy it on my Android device. Okay, so let's switch to Unity. Okay, so this is the Unity Studio. So this is my scene where I have like some 2 game objects, and for each game object I attach a script. So for example, here a simple one about the cube. So here on the C# side and the Unity side, we use a mono behavior, which kind of a coroutine here. So where you can do some stuff when the coroutine start, and on each frame, then I will apply a transformation here to rotate the cube. So what's interesting here, we're going to change the color of the capsule by sending some Unity message from our Android applications. So when I attach the script here, so that's a lot of stuff here for changing the color when it's updating, and then that's something that will interest us. So I'm exposing the changed color with a string parameter, like the new color and stuff. So each time we're gonna send red, I'm gonna get the object and change the color of the material to red, and so on, to the color I put in as a parameter. And then I'll do the same. Like I will send some command to like move the object around, up, down, right, left. And the thing is, like, you have to pass a parameter. So that's one of the limits. If you don't want, like, if you just want like to use a void function, you can't. You need like to pass some fake data, and that's like some limitation here. Okay, so now we have our game is here. So then I go to File, and then I go to New Project. No, that's too far for me. OK. When you check, you go to the export, you export your project, and then bim, you end up in Android Studio. So here is the library that has been generated here with a bunch of stuff. So you have the Unity library as a jar here, and you have lots of resources. You have some Java code, some C++ code that has been generated by Unity to support and run the game. So in our tiny Android application, yeah, let me go to the main folder. So I'm defining my main activity, which will hold like the default application. So I'm just gonna inject the override of the application. So when I will show first a small screen that will trigger the opening of the game. And so this is the Unity player activity that has been overridden here. So to add some button at the top, so to add the controller, to move our object on Unity side. And I also add like 2 buttons at the top to change the color of the capsule. So it will randomly change the color on the capsule when we click on a button that are coming from the Android framework. OK, and when I deploy the application, so I'm gonna share what's on my phone now. OK, so this is my phone. I'm gonna, this is my Pixel 3. OK, run that. Hope it's not gonna take some time. OK, it's installing. So this is my main activity. So pretty much like Android classic stuff. Display an image, you do whatever you want as an Android developer. You implement your application here. And when I will click on start, so it will start the Unity activity that has been overridden, like to show my custom UIs on top of the Unity game. So when I click on start, so the Unity game is starting, and then I added like all the native buttons that are coming from the Android framework. And when I click to randomly change the color, so it communicates with Unity send message directly with the Unity engine, and it works pretty smoothly. And you can do whatever you want. You can even like move a bit the object. That's where we end up like building AAA games like this. OK, so let's. The nice thing also here, before Unity as a library, it was like very hacky to go back to your application, to the Android part, and now it seamlessly go back to the actual code. So your Unity games is just a part of your application, and it doesn't do any weird stuff. And so, OK, back to the slide. So I will end up here with some resources. You have some nice documentation on the Unity blog about Unity as a library and how you can integrate Unity in your native Android application. I also wrote last year an article about how to build and bring Unity feature to your Android applications. And more generally, if you want to know more about some Android game development, the developer Android website have a dedicated game section. There is also an article here I wrote a few years ago about how really to build a VR plugin for Unity. and also lots of documentation on how you can make Unity plugins for Android. All right. Thank you very much. And if you have any question, I will be happy to answer.